It is a new year, new rotation for the Orlando Magic. Today we're going to be talking about how their young guards are going to fit in to this roster that is trying to make a playoff push, and what will the bench end up looking like come season's end. Guys, we're going to go over all of that and more here in just a moment, but make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. It is the easiest and best way to support us over here at Magic Digest. We're trying to build an Orlando Magic basketball community here on YouTube. Okay, so a big storyline in the offseason, if you have been following the Orlando Magic, is certainly they're trying to figure out their guard situation. Their biggest signing was KCP. They let Markelle Fultz walk. Cole Anthony is still going to be on the team, even though by my estimates, I definitely think we could get something valuable, in a trade for him. Jalen Suggs is going to get that nod as the starting point guard. Anthony Black had a good summer league. Gary Harris and Corey Joseph are back, ish. And we're just going to kind of rock with the team that we are given. Well, we're going to go over how those guys are going to fit in their roster. Now, this is coming from a bit of inspiration, coming over from an article written by Mason Williams of SI covering the Orlando Magic, saying that solving the backcourt puzzle should be one of the biggest priorities for the Orlando Magic. Now, I definitely think it is and will be. It says, the Orlando Magic boasts one of the NBA's deepest bench units in the entire league. Now, I personally think that is a little bit of a stretch, but with so many players competing for minutes at the guard positions, the Magic must be sharp about their delegation of the playing time. Now, certainly there's only so many minutes to go around for everybody on this team, and I've certainly talked about that in previous videos where we're talking about the depth chart, and when I've talked about videos about the specific video where I said these are the players that you got to be okay with trading in a sense. Now, I know that's an extra step in the thought process, but you're going to have to stay with me. It's just the fact of the matter that all of these guys aren't going to be on a championship level type of team or a contending championship Orlando Magic team. So you're going to have to realize that there's only so many spots to go around, and there's only so many minutes to go to each player. So a certain player, even if you're a big fan of them, is not going to get there just due in a sense that you believe they should have. Now, the first player that we need to start talking about whenever we're assessing what is going to happen with the Orlando Magic's rotation is probably Jalen Suggs. And I know I got Cole Anthony right here because Jalen Suggs is going to be super quick. Jalen Suggs is the starting point guard without a doubt, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's going to be the starting facilitator, the main facilitator, the guy that you are going to look towards to feed Franz and Paolo the ball and to get the offense going whenever we have dead points. Would have liked him to play better in the playoffs, but here we are. That is going to be the case. He's going to get paid potentially over $30 million a year in about a month's time. They have until October 21st. Okay, now we're going to get to Cole Anthony here. Cole Anthony is a guy who's been with the squad for a while and has had pretty decent years as of late, but he is a guy that will not start. Okay, when we take a look at what happened with him last year, he didn't really start a ton, and that is going to be a very big thing to look out for. He played in 81 games and came off the bench in all 81 games. That's good, reliability, but he's not going to start for you. And they've decided that Gary Harris, who played 54 games last year, is going to have 27 starts. Anthony Black played 69 games, going to have 33. And those are the guys that they're going to give the nod to in starting. Now, I don't know if they would go for Corey Joseph. He seems like a very much of a depth move by the front office. But at the end of the day, I definitely think that you can put him in the starting lineup. They just haven't said that they want to do that or shown that they want to do that. He averaged 44% from the field and 34% from three last year. Those numbers are pretty consistent with what he has done for his career. Averaged 12 points per game. Was the guy off the bench. This year, I don't think that he will be the highest scorer off the bench, but I definitely think he'll be up there, and we'll see if he ends the year with us. I don't think he's cutting in front of anybody here when we're talking about rotation, but certainly a very good player and we'll have to watch to see how he continues to develop. We may have seen the best of him so far, though, in his career. He may be at his peak. Okay, KCP, that's the next guy coming in. That's the guy who's going to be the starting shooting guard. Like I mentioned and rattled off, we had all those guards that were starting. It was mainly because we also were just trying to figure out who's going to be that two guard or who's going to be that guy who slots into that other guard position. Well, I think it's obvious it's going to be KCP. You paid him a lot of money. He's going to be the second highest player, I do believe, this season, behind Jonathan Isaac. So he's going to be that guy that we're paying a lot of money to. He's kind of going to be the biggest investment that the Orlando Magic have made in a very long time, especially in free agency. Now, I did also want to take a look at just the overall depth chart here. When we take a look at it, they got KCP as the starting shooting guard. So I think that that's super important to recognize that he's going to get, no matter what, no matter how, I want to phrase this properly because I think he's going to fit just fine on this team, but no matter what kind of early season struggles and through those 10 games, which are kind of a gauntlet, and if you haven't checked out the schedule, check out the schedule video here on the channel. Everybody plays everybody the same amount of times, but the Orlando Magic start off the season in a pretty rough state, in a bit of a little road test right off the bat. But Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is going to be that guy at the number 2. I don't really see this changing whatsoever, but should be noted that even through that first part of the year, I don't think that that will change no matter what. Okay, so now we have on this depth chart, we have Gary Harris, Anthony Black, and potentially Corey Joseph way down there, and then anybody who wants to slot over from the 3 to the back court, but I don't really see any of those guys doing that. I think it's really important to recognize some of the other young players on the roster, but otherwise, I don't really see it happening for like a guy like even Jet Howard or Caleb Houston or whoever else might be, might get a nod for more minutes. Tristan Da Silva, those guys are not moving into, in my opinion, unless you're playing a huge lineup, and the Magic are already pretty big, as is. Unless you're playing a huge lineup, I don't see any of those guys really kind of getting in. But positionless basketball. Okay, let's get into Gary Harris. I know when he was signed, a lot of people were very frustrated. They were like, what is going on? Why is Gary Harris back? I think it's a depth move, just as it is for Corey Joseph. Corey Joseph just been with the team, going to be here going into next year, or at least going into training camp. He was the final active spot. That wasn't a two-way, but we'll see where those guys end up fitting in. I have a feeling it's going to be similar to last year, where if you need to call on them, you will. The Orlando Magic have had injuries over the last handful of years. It seems like almost past decade, where you just are dealing with constant injuries. The injury bug, we kind of were able to shake that notion or that thought process as fans this past year, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that injuries don't happen, and it will happen to the Orlando Magic. It's just about to who and if you're ready. They're certainly ready as far as the backcourt is concerned. They've got those veteran guys that could slot in and play next to pretty much everybody else on the court. It really just comes to what exactly is Anthony Black going to be? Is Anthony Black going to be a guy who is not, serviceable in the NBA, or is he going to be a guy who can step up, be that defensive player? I did talk, and I have made videos on how good Anthony Black is going to be, or how good he can be, and I really highlight that Cavs series where we needed somebody who could play defense, who could get more minutes like that, who could support people on this roster whenever they are in a slump like Jalen Suggs was, and I think Anthony Black can do that. He had an ankle injury over the summer league, and I think that really hurt kind of his stock when we look at this team as a whole and say Anthony Black is going to definitely be a contributor. But with everything and taking all of that into account, I do think Anthony Black is a player that will be able to play plenty of minutes. Now, this article does bring up something that I wanted to kind of throw to the wolves here. It mentions the dynamic between getting those young guys playing and KCP coming in. They cite that Bruce Brown, who was just obviously acquired by the Indiana Pacers in the previous offseason, was used after he played pretty well on a fair deal-ish in a deal to get Pascal Siakam. Could that be the fate that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope ends up getting if the Orlando Magic have an offer that they just simply can't refuse? And if Anthony Black is that kind of player who's good enough to slot right in, or they can just roll with Cole Anthony and give Anthony Black the minutes that Cole Anthony was receiving on the bench, why wouldn't you want to do that? Or could they do that? I personally don't really think that that is why the Orlando Magic brought in KCP. I will say the Indiana Pacers obviously went farther last year than the Orlando Magic, but I don't know how much of a win now mode that they were in at the beginning of the year. And I think that they wanted to get a quality player there, and they decided to end up making a deal, and it just so happened that Brown was going to be involved in that trade. I don't think that this is something that the Orlando Magic would ever really think about doing, truthfully, but I know that there's that, former Denver Nuggets connection that I could see why somebody's drawing that comparison. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about that specific situation. Could you see KCP potentially being involved in a trade? And what do you just in general think about the guard rotation for the Orlando Magic in this upcoming year? I think they're going to figure it out, although it is a very, very big task to do. Everything will fall in line if Jalen Suggs is good and KCP can get acclimated, though. But that is all the time that I have for today. Thank you guys for sticking around till the end of this video. I will see you guys next time with more Orlando Magic basketball content.